welcome to Dad Hammer, Bolters and Booze, where we discuss all things Warhammer while staying hydrated with an adult beverage. I am David the Warboss, and I'm joined by the most generic space marine in the Imperium, Mr. Medicae Steve. Steve, how are we doing?
Doing pretty good, man. How are you tonight?
I'm doing pretty great. I always love recording and talking about Warhammer, and I don't get to talk Warhammer with my family very
No,
much.
not so much.
Yeah, the wife's not too interested, and I say, hey, you want to know about all the new stuff with Warhammer? Yeah,
No,
okay, no,
no, I
not
really
really.
don't.
Okay, fair enough.
And it's Leviathan Eve. How about that?
Leviathan, Leviathan
Leviathan Eve
Eve,
Eve. Yeah,
Eve.
like
Okay,
tomorrow on as of our recording. Tomorrow
yeah,
is Leviathan
yeah.
Eve, and
Well,
today is Leviathan Eve.
oh man, very exciting. And apparently you've gone into the deep dark recesses of your mind to come
Oh
up with
yeah,
that one.
yeah. I should call into work tomorrow, but
Yeah,
I'm
you
not.
should
I'm not.
take a
I'm
sick
not
day.
going to. No, I'm not
Yeah,
going
you're
to.
not going to make it. Well, we have a phenomenal show for you. We're going to talk about Warhammer 40,000 10th edition, shocker, but we're going to talk about I've actually played a game, First Impressions of 10th edition. It was a limited run, but we are going to talk specifically on what I thought just kind of right out of the gate. We will discuss the new Warhammer 40,000 app, which has just launched. We got a lot of thoughts and impressions on that after building our own army lists. We have some additional rules drops for boarding actions and combat patrol, two new modes that are, well, boarding actions being a 9th edition mode, but there's significant changes to it as a result of 10th edition. And then finally, we are going to talk to the Leviathan launch, and I'll say a launch party if that's a thing. But we're both very excited, and we're having a get together with several friends to celebrate the event. Lots to discuss. Thank you so much for listening to our show. As always, if you like what you're hearing, make sure to rate, follow, and subscribe our show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. You can find us on our website, dadhammerpodcast.com, and of course, all over social media, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, where we will post pictures of our latest projects and thoughts and all kinds of stuff. But first, we're going to start with the most important part of every Dad Hammer podcast, and that is, what are we drinking? And Steve, you and I actually, usually we'll have a split, one person with the cocktail recipe and the other person maybe with something less exciting,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a beer or a loaded tea or something like that. But tonight, in celebration of Leviathan and 10th edition, we're going to unify our cocktail. We got one single cocktail recipe to go. And with the Leviathan box and all that stuff happening this weekend, it's vitally important to start your day on Saturday with a balanced breakfast.
Indeed.
And really, when I say breakfast, I'm talking about syrup because that's in our cocktail. That's breakfast, right?
It's all you need. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you can put it on whatever you like.
That's right. It's the start of every good decision is syrup and booze. So this one's called, it's a theme. Fights First is a new thing in 10th edition. That's an ability. So this cocktail is appropriately named Fights First Thing in the Morning. So there you go.
You just might do that.
You might if you drink too many. This is a take on the Cubanada, if you have ever heard of that. And this recipe calls for 2 ounces of white rum, 1 ounce of lime juice, and 1 ounce of maple syrup. So really simple drink to make. Put some ice in a shaker, put all that in there, shake it up, and strain it into a chilled glass. And of course, if you know my hack, which is fill your cocktail glass with ice right before you make the drink, and then it's kind of semi-chilled.
Then it's chilled.
It's just lazy man chilled. But
Yeah.
if you're gonna do it right, stick it in the fridge or freezer or something. But this drink it's got that citrusy taste to it, and of course, the rum flavor, but the syrup gives it a little bit of the sweetness at the end, and it's a bit of a different take on your
Okay.
normal citrusy type cocktail. So I really like it. So, Steve, I know you've been been battling some ailments lately, so I know you're going to be taking it easy tonight. But
Yeah.
yeah, this is a good
Not
cocktail.
not so transhuman tonight.
Not so
Um
transhuman. Well, don't worry. I'll drink two for both of us.
All right.
So, as we always say, cheers and bottom up, but I'll bottoms up. I'll just say it to myself.
Oh.
Cheers, David, and bottoms up.
To your health.
Yeah, to my health. Thank you. All right, let's talk about first 10th edition game impressions. So I was able to play. I know you haven't had a chance to yet.
Not
I coaxed my teenage son into playing a game of Warhammer. Um, he actually used to play quite a bit with me when we first started, and it was awesome. And then as he got older, he got into Fortnite and Apex Legends and playing with his friends online. And I get it; that's fine.
Yeah,
But
we're just not cool anymore.
no, well, speak for yourself. I am
Yeah.
super cool because I talk about Warhammer on a podcast. Hey, that's cool. I think it's
Hey,
cool.
man. Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody wants to be you.
Sure.
Or us. I don't know.
Us. Yeah, thank you. That sounds better. So I got to play a game with my son, and just right out of the gate, I played Orks because that was the first army I ever started with in 8th edition, and really did quite a bit in ninth before Votan came out and Space Wolves, and I got to dabble with some Necrons as well.
Mm-hmm.
But got to play Orks, and I'm starting. If you've followed us on Instagram, you're seeing some Chaos models that I've been painting, and so he wanted to play Chaos for the first time.
Oh,
So
good.
we played Orcs versus Chaos in a 1,000 point battle just to kind of start out. And my first impressions, just through playing the game, and of course he hasn't played in a while, was that it does play faster,
Oh,
or
good.
at least it seems that way. Um, and I think part of that is due to having the index cards, the data sheets
Mm-hmm.
there for quick referral. Obviously, we don't have the ones that are the purchased ones that are really nice and fancy. So my laser printer is crying in a corner after printing everything out.
It's smoking.
Yeah, but it did make for a faster game. It reminded me of Age of Sigmar when you have the cards handy and it's got all the to hit rolls and all that. I really liked having the shooting, psychic, melee,
Mm-hmm.
all of the to hit, numbers right
Yeah.
there on the data sheet, so you don't have to reference multiple books, and the psychic powers are already there. Granted, I'm playing
Oh, that's
Orcs,
good.
so psychic powers are pretty limited,
Yeah, but
but
they're there.
yeah, and it really was helpful, and I think the game played much faster. Time will tell as we get more complex and into things, and I would say the only sticking point with playing the first game was the terrain cover rules are still a little
Mm-hmm.
odd to me.
Okay.
Um, it terrain is and cover, and are you fully in terrain, wholly within, partially
Right.
within? Do you get cover? Who gets cover? Who doesn't? Has always been a little weird in past editions, but I'll say that after playing and talking it over with my son, who's not that he doesn't know a ton about 10th edition. He's just kind of
Yeah.
playing along. Um, it took a minute, but I think I fully understand now. Being wholly within, it's a little weird where you have to have a unit on a terrain piece on the base
Okay.
wholly within in order to be able to shoot a unit outside of the terrain, but that outside unit can shoot you even if you're partially on the terrain. So that's a little odd, but um, I know, Steve, that
Okay.
you had mentioned to me just that the rules commentary download. Have you had a chance to read through all of that?
Yeah. I read through a good bit of it actually. Um it's it's not it's set up in basically an alphabetical order.
Yeah.
So, but it does give some good visual explanations of some of the more obscure rules.
Hmm.
It gives a great one of the big guns never tire. So it gives you an example of your tank, and then two different enemy A and B units. So it tells you, all right, this is what you can do and what you can't do. So that was great for clarification. Um, yeah, I mean, it goes through. It's
And
like it's set up
pictures.
like
I mean,
pictures, but
yeah.
indexes, but it's set up in like I said, alphabetical order, so you can just scroll through and I want something in the F category, like fly.
Right.
And it talks about horizontal and vertical distances between models. It gives some nice visual representations of that,
Mm-hmm.
and it talks about the horizontal distance and deep strike. So it shows a model up on top of a building, but it gives a nice example, like it's just a 9-inch line from an imaginary line straight up. So
Yeah, and the visual to me really helps.
mm-hmm.
And this, by the way, we didn't really talk about it. This is the rules commentary, or I guess it's more like an FAQ
Yeah,
for the new rules. It's 18 pages, so it's pretty lengthy. But the best part, especially on the terrain rules, as I was talking about a minute ago, it shows a really helpful diagram. Particularly if you're looking at the rules commentary on page 12, that actually
I was just
shows
about to say, yeah.
of the PDF, the diagram of where, okay, if you're, it shows a land raider,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a land raider or a tank from
Some sort of
Space
tank,
Marines.
yeah.
Yeah, if you're partially within, if you're just on the terrain and not wholly within it, you can't shoot a unit on the other side of the ruin, but that unit can shoot in. So it's a little odd. I, but I know that's a lot of, a lot of people are talking about this. But
Mm-hmm.
the way that I was talking with my son about it, and something that helped it make a little more sense to me, is let's assume for the moment that the 3D element, the actual terrain walls, are not there.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're just playing on a flat board where you've got a square that says terrain and cover.
Mm-hmm.
Let's assume that for the second. If you pulled a tank onto that and I said, okay, in order for you to get cover, you have to be within this box completely.
Right.
And if not, anybody else can see you. That would help a little bit because you're not distracted by these walls, because you're going to be in scenarios where the terrain is not going to be quote unquote blocking a visual. It's going to be wide open and it's not going to make any sense. But
Mm-hmm.
I think if you look at it from a top down view, which is partially why they made it this way in the diagram, so that you could fully understand that it's not necessarily about the walls per se, about whether or not they're within the ruin or not. So
Right.
that's my take on it, and it helped to at least clarify for the game.
And this commentary, yeah, this is. I wish they would have done this more in ninth
Mm-hmm.
instead of the nebulous FAQ and errata stuff. Those were, to me, kind of unhelpful because I move my mouth when I read, so I need pictures, and pictures help.
I mean,
And
they do.
this, they
The
do.
commentary actually feels like someone explaining the rules to me versus a rules
Yes,
lawyer telling me, these, look at these numbers. So
and
I like this.
and I think people took this as like, oh, they're already fixing the rules. I'm like, no, I think they're just explaining the rules,
Hmm.
just clarifying, and that's what else can you ask for, you know?
I mean, Warhammer is already a complicated game by
Mm-hmm.
nature. Um, but for anybody new or considering playing the game that's listening to this, that is part of the appeal. If you like
Yes.
deep strategy games, just like if you Dungeons and Dragons, any other game, that's a really complex game. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they sell it as so simple, and yeah, all you gotta do is show up, and here's your character sheet and roll dice. But
Mm-hmm.
if you once you get into it, you're like, oh my goodness, this is really complicated. And Warhammer's no different,
Yeah.
but they're doing their best, I think, to try to explain things as best they can.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
and with that, I'll say that playing the game and having the commentary, there's a quick start guide that has flown under the radar a little bit for a lot of people. You go straight to the rules. There's a quick start guide for this,
Yep.
and it's a 3-page document on their website that tells you the phases and everything that needs to happen. But most importantly, it gives you the weapon effects. So the devastating wounds, lethal hits, indirect fire. It tells you all of it right there.
Mm-hmm.
So for anybody thinking about starting up a game, I highly recommend you find the quick start rules on the Warcom site. and that'll give you a 3-page summary that you can follow along while you're playing.
Yeah, I agree. That's another great document.
But really enjoyable first game.
Good.
I did win. I kind of tabled him by
That's
turn 2.
fair.
But just to be fair too, he had never played Chaos,
Right.
and I asked him what kind of synergies he wanted. He didn't care
Mm-hmm.
about that. He picked random units that looked cool, and that's fine.
Yep.
And I probably shouldn't. I probably should have told him up front, but I was also trying to learn the game for 10th edition, so give me a break.
Yeah.
No
It's
mercy.
just no mercy, man. No prisoners at all.
But we had a good time. It was fun. I got to roll some dice, and many more games to come. So let's move on now to the new Warhammer 40,000 app that has just dropped as of this recording earlier today. Really exciting stuff. And I've had a chance to play around with it. But Steve, I know we downloaded it, have
Mm-hmm.
looked at it, made some army wish list kind of thing. What were your first impressions out of the gate for the new app?
Um, I okay. At first, I had just a small sense of disappointment because I built myself up for a little more. I was
Yeah.
kind of hoping that there would be a little bit more interactive things that would be easier to navigate in the game. However, I started playing with it and I was like, well, it's a long, long way better than the previous app for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to build a list, but the 10th edition rules are making that kind of easy in itself. It looks better. It's a lot more just visually appealing. So if you pull up on your tablet or your phone, I really like that aspect. Actually, once you get the navigation down, it's actually a little quicker than I thought it would be. I don't know if I want to use that solely during a game, but you definitely could. Um, it's just going to take you a minute, and depending on how fast your access or your Wi-Fi or whatever is, that might be the linchpin there. Um,
Yeah,
oh,
I don't know if I could use it exclusively.
yeah, I
I've had
don't
a
think I
chance
could
to.
either.
I built a list and for Votan, I built one for Chaos, and just put together like, okay, I did all this. I like the visuals. I like the UI. It's very
Mm-hmm.
speedy, which is great. But then I imagined myself, okay, it's my turn. Now I'm going to pull up the Abaddon the Despoiler. All right,
Mm-hmm.
so I got to find him. Okay, there he is. Great.
Yep.
Now here, okay, I got to click here, got to click there. Now I got to pull up the data sheet. Okay, now I'm ready to go. I do his movement, and then wait a minute. Before I move him, I need to see what the synergies are on this other
Mm,
unit of Terminators that he's leading, because that's now a thing.
that's right.
Okay, so I got to go back now, and I go back, I find the Terminators, click there, then click the little document thing, pull up the data sheet. Okay, now back to Abaddon. And that's the problem.
That's all the back and forth. Yeah, I agree. It makes it a little. I do like the where you're talking about the weapon effects. Now I think you can just touch it on the screen, and it'll
Yes.
it'll kind of bring up little windows and bubbles. Now I really do like that.
Hmm.
That was definitely missing from the previous app.
They did a good job with on this one of making things
Hmm.
quick to reference. So while you're playing, if you're not sure what an ability does, for example, it is handy to have
Yeah.
just to tap on it, because otherwise, I don't want to be negative about the app. It's You got the app in front of you, you click the sustained hits. What the heck is that? It's
Right.
right there. Versus having it all printed out, it's very easy to access printed out, and then you see sustained hits, and oh man, let me go look at the quick start guide. So
Hmm.
it's you're kind of doing the same thing. It's just with all in one device this time.
Yeah. I did build a list. Some of those war gear options and build it. I don't know if you felt this way.
Yeah.
Uh, it felt like I was like, "Are you sure you're gonna let me do that?"
Yeah.
Because I was really taken back on, for example, the Land Raider. So, but I look back through I'm looking at the download right now for the data sheet itself. So, for example, It the model is equipped with a twin heavy bolter, two Godhammer las cannons, and armored tracks. Well, then it says in the war gear options that this model can be equipped with one hunter killer missile, can be equipped with one multi melta, and can be equipped with one storm bolter. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, well, you can add just maybe one of these, or you exchange something. And I was like, no, there's no exchange on it. I don't see it anywhere on the data sheet.
Yeah, you
And
just add it.
it lets you add all those on the
Yeah.
war gear app. So I was like, can you really do that? I mean, I don't know. I've never used a Land Raider before.
Yeah,
So,
and I was doing that with my Votan
mm-hmm,
Hearthcan warriors, and I just went in and add. They have with the warriors, you can add three options. One's like a meta pack, a scanner,
yeah,
and a comms array. Those are three little things that you could add. In ninth edition, you had to pay for
mm-hmm.
upgrades for that, and those would cost points for your army. And this one, you just add them. So to your point, my question is, why wouldn't you? Why not just auto include it? I guess is what I'm saying.
True. Yeah, there. I don't. There's no downside to it. It looks like you can fire them all if you want to. I mean, there's no negative to doing it. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
why even bother putting that in? I guess I guess that might be to the point a little bit to
I
where
mean, maybe
it's not
we're nitpicking,
we are
obviously,
it's
but
not it's not a complaint or negative. I was just
right.
thinking like,
Observation.
is this going to change?
Yeah, this is the first iteration,
Yeah.
so they may come back and modify some things or tweak it, and I hope so. I mean, that is app development. That's the
Mm-hmm.
cycle where they release it, everything's great. They take the feedback, and then they put updates out. They make tweaks and modifications to it and add features.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of which, I know we had a wish list of
Mm-hmm.
features. We were talking about this before the show and just thinking, what would we add? And Steve, for you looking at the app, it does what it's supposed to do, which is help you build lists of
Mm-hmm.
armies and keeps track of points, and that's great, right? So it's a good prep for
Right.
the game. You could use it in game, but there's some alternatives I think that could be considered. What are maybe just one or two features that you would love to see on the app itself?
Um, I, as much as I know Battle Scribe's not a GW product or anything like that, I really did like the way you could export that roster and print everything out on a couple sheets, depending on how
Yeah,
long your list was. But it gave you all the things that are on the data sheets.
yeah,
Now that was good in ninth because you didn't have data cards and stuff. So you know, I think I'm gonna call that one a meet in the middle kind of deal,
yeah.
I
Because
suppose.
the war gear, you're not changing it as much. So,
Right.
as you said a minute ago, it's part of that is the app, but the other part is just 10th edition making things simpler. So
Mm-hmm.
you don't have as many. That was the benefit of Battle Scribe, where you could go in and add your war gear, and then when you printed off your sheet, it actually just showed what you selected, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
And then the ninth edition app, the old 40k app, never did that, and it would just take what's on the card,
Mm-hmm.
by default, and then your war gear you'd have to just remember, I guess, um, which is a huge problem for us anyway.
Yeah, big time.
But
It.
yeah, exporting to a PDF is something that I thought they would do that. I did see on Twitter when the Warhammer community official Twitter account announced that they were coming out with this app, and people
Mm-hmm.
were replying. One person said, love the app. I would really like the ability to export to PDF, and then they said something else, and the response from the Twitter account was, stay tuned for that, we're working on
Okay.
something. But I don't know if that was directly about exporting to PDF. That seems like something that should be right out of the gate, but maybe not. But I sure would like that, to be able to make modifications and then just print it out.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful for sure.
Yeah, the other thing I would like to see on here, um, is just like, you've got your list building. That's the
Mm-hmm.
main purpose of this app. I would really like to see a game mode. So you've got your prep where you're building your list and doing your math back and forth to see what points and which units are going to work best and synergies and all that stuff. And then I would love to see, okay, let me flip over into, I'm getting ready to play a game.
Mm-hmm.
So there is some kind of card view, multi data sheet view,
Okay.
where it's almost like I'm looking at the printed out copies on the table, but maybe I've just got these little cards, smaller cards with the names on them on the screen of my phone or tablet or even a laptop if you want to do that. And you just here, okay, I'm gonna click on this one. That way you're looking at like 6 per screen,
Mm-hmm.
and you can quickly see what you want to do, and then even have something where you can compare two side by side or something like that. That would just be more game friendly, I think.
Yeah, and I like your suggestion of, gosh, you would think that it would be easy to do a points and wounds tracker. I
Right.
saw you put that in the notes. I mean, you can talk more about it than I. I'm not very savvy on what it would take to change an app or whatever, but I think there's a tournament app out there, and
Yeah.
there's not wounds tracker on it, but it keeps just a sort of rudimentary tally of your victory points and stuff. But it databases it all too, so that I guess they can sort of data mine all these who's winning, who's losing, all the meta kind of stuff. But yeah, in addition on those cards, it would be really easy. Like, all right, there's a little wheel or a little, you know,
Mm-hmm.
up and down arrow. Like, all right, now he has 3 wounds, so I gotta account for that. And I don't know. It seems like it could be easy to do, but I don't know. I don't know enough
Yeah,
about that
that I
part
mean
of it.
that's really, thinking of it from Dungeons and Dragons as well, where
Hmm.
they you could pull up the character sheet online and track it that way. You could pull it up on your phone on an app, and then when you take a wound or something, the only challenge there, and of course in tournaments, you wouldn't allow that because then people would be, changing wounds and
Yeah,
things on their phones, and they would be able to be seen. That's why you have the wound trackers, and I get it. I just would be like,
fair
it would
enough.
be nice to have the option for a casual game,
Yeah, and
something like
get
that.
rid of the whiteboard.
Yeah, exactly. But I think overall, this is a step in the right direction. Um, I'm a Warhammer Plus subscriber. I know you are as well.
Hmm.
So I am assuming this is just going to be rolled into the subscription. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem
No,
paying
I don't either.
for the app. It's a I was listening to Tabletop Tactics, their YouTube. They were talking about the app, and they made a good point. It's a service. Things cost money, and you can't have everything for free. And I think
No.
one of the presenters said, it'd be great if Netflix were free, or that Starbucks were free. Everything's free. This is a service.
They have to pay people to work on them, and
Right.
as you know, in the IT world, those people come at a premium price now. I mean,
Yep.
that's not a 15.50 an hour employee.
Yeah.
That's somebody with some experience and knowledge and creativity.
And I
So
think they're also
yeah,
going to
it's fine.
need they're going to need a healthy HR department with a shrink, so that when all of the the Reddit and Twitter nerd hordes come
Oh my
after him saying
gosh.
this is trash, this is
Yeah.
garbage, that they can fend them off with pitchforks. Um, but
I-
joking aside, the app is good.
yeah.
It's speedy. I like the UI. It's very clean. It looks much more modern than the previous app. I will definitely be using it for list building, and I would love some additional features to make it a slam dunk. But until then, this is good enough, I think.
And I'll say one last thing. We've been talking about it in previous episodes and stuff about characters and how important they seem to be in this
Right?
edition. I have to tell you, man, when I was just tinkering around and building some lists and stuff, man, I'm gonna actually end up wanting to play more characters. Like I don't
Yeah.
usually play a lot of like named characters or big characters, but just building the list, you get to really get a good intense sense of all the synergy and where things are. And I just didn't get that feel with Ninth. And I thought that was pretty cool. And it's good that the app kind of opened my eyes to that. I think that makes it sort of proof positive that it's sort of a worthy addition to the game.
Yeah. Agreed. And that is the benefit of making the rules free, making the data sheets free, um, so that you can tinker around with stuff. Because if you're thinking about, I'm considering starting another army. Where do I start?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me go look to see what's out there. And if you wanted to start up a chaos army, if you wanted to start up a Tau army, Thousand Sons, whatever, you could just go tinker around, create an army, see what it looks like. Oh, I like the looks of those models, and that gives you the at least the chance to build something before really playing it. And I think it's great. This is a good
Mm-hmm.
benefit of having the app and being able to do that. All right, let's move now onto a couple of different modes that they have for the new 10th edition. One is just really a modification. They introduced a game mode called Boarding Actions, which was very well received in ninth edition, late in the game in ninth edition, with the Arcs of Omen books, the detachment rules, and all kinds of stuff that. And Steve, when you and I played Boarding Actions, we both
Mm-hmm.
felt that it was a fast way to play, but it didn't feel like you were missing out. Like we felt like we were still playing Warhammer,
Yeah.
and that was something cool because you could play a 500-point game of Warhammer 40k ninth edition, but you just never. I don't know. It's like, well, why are we doing this? Why aren't we playing a bigger game? And boarding actions allowed you to have that feel of still playing Warhammer, but with some modifications. So in 10th edition, they've made a few rules changes to boarding actions, still very much a thing. And it's a good thing, too, because I got all this terrain and it was a
Oh,
pain in the butt
I was
to
starting
pay.
to sweat it. I was like, "Oh, please say something about boarding actions. I feel like you
Yeah.
killed it."
No, I didn't think they were going to do that. I mean, this was a pretty big win for them late in ninth edition, and a lot of people liked the game. So do I. Um, so the big change, and to be honest, I really didn't notice this until I actually read the new modifications for boarding actions, and
Same
I
here.
felt a little stupid. But
I
as
did
soon as I
too.
read it, the first thing was like, since there's no more actions in 10th edition, I'm like, wait, what? Oh yeah, there's
Oh yeah, good point.
there's no more actions. So
Yeah.
for those of you who haven't played Warhammer, I mean, actions were a thing that
Yep.
they were very confusing. I, maybe I'm just stupid, but I
No,
just
no,
could
no, no, no.
never figure it out.
If I had a secondary objective or whatever you call them, and it said actions in it, I just put that card back in the deck.
Yeah, it never really. I don't know. I always felt like I was wasting my turn if I was doing an
Mm-hmm.
action, but I'm also not hyper competitive in the tournament scene, so this may be blasphemy. But I never really did much of the action stuff in ninth.
Nah.
So in boarding actions now, there's no more actions. Instead, you have what's called a tactical maneuver, and you do those during the shooting phase. So and I have yet to play a boarding actions game with 10th edition,
Mm-hmm.
but from what I'm reading, instead of making this an actual quote unquote action, really it's just something part of the phase. And there are some rules, right? If you can't be battle shocked, you can't be within engagement range, all that stuff makes sense. But what I like about it is that it doesn't require an action. It's almost like the psychic phase. They got rid of the
Mm-hmm.
psychic phase. They put the psychic powers in the shooting, and now they've done something similar with boarding actions. Instead of you didn't get rid of it, you just moved it to say this is something that you can do at the end of your shooting phase.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I really like what they're doing to simplify things. And even still, opening hatchways, for example, used to be an action, and now you can do that at
Yeah.
the end of your movement phase. So Steve, when you and I played, uh it was always odd trying to
Yeah.
okay, I can only
So,
open this so I can move, but I can't open this door without making a significant effort. And I get the rule, but it was a little
yeah.
weird to me.
But now it feels like, and I'm maybe just reading what I want to read, but now you can move, open the hatch, and shoot.
I think so. Yeah. I mean,
I haven't. I read through it a few times, and I'm like, because I felt like in the previous edition, you had to make a choice. You moved your
Mm-hmm.
army or you moved your unit and opened the door, and they were done. You just
Mm-hmm.
skipped their shooting phase. They couldn't do anything else. It wasn't that kind of way we sort of decided that it worked.
Yeah, and but that was okay. It felt
Mm-hmm.
like playing XCOM. It felt like a very video gamey where
Yep.
you had a certain number of action points to spend per model, and
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, well, I'm going to spend 1 AP to go over here and move, and then I'm going to spend the next AP to open the door. I'm going to spend the AP to shoot. It felt very XCOM or Battle Sector if you played the Warhammer version of that, and that all made sense to me. So I'm not
Mm-hmm.
complaining. That was just part of the game, and now they have rolled that into the different phases, and I think that's just going to make the game a little less confusing for new
Yeah.
players, and it's going to make it go a little faster, I think.
Well, it'd be more congruent with, you know, Big Hammer on 10th edition. It seems like
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
rules are getting a little bit closer together, because it felt like boarding actions was a sort of a really, as we say, we really liked it, but an interesting bridge between Kill Team and Big 40k. But now it feels
Yeah.
like a nice parallel, uh, game mode.
Yeah. And the with the hatchways, if you've never played boarding actions, moving around and opening doors and closing doors, it it was a good thing with boarding action. It gives you that tight corridor feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm happy to read through the rules then, and also to see that the benefits of cover, they're keeping with the same language as
Yeah.
the larger 40k game, and that's still there. There's no restrictions on it. With the full, I like how you say big hammer, big 40k. It's like the big boy table.
The big boy
When
table.
you move to the big boy table, there are some restrictions on receiving benefits of cover if you have a 3-up save and some other stuff that we've discussed in the podcast. You don't have restrictions anymore, which makes sense within a tight corridor. So, having the benefits of cover, being able to open and close those hatches, and now Steve, with I know you're a big fan of Deep Strike with your Dark
Mm-hmm.
Angels and your Terminators. That's now going to play very
A
very
lot
closely
different.
into your strategy.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's going to be different now. Previously, as long as it took the circle route and was over 9 inches, I could park them right outside a closed door.
Mm-hmm.
That your unit was on the other side of, and I can't do that now. It's going to be a straight line. It's as if they don't exist at all. So I got to be 9 inches away through the wall or whatever. So that'll be different. I don't think it's unfair though,
No,
um, because those are tough units. It was almost except for the points values, etc. But it was almost unbalanced to like just be able to just go ahead, go go ahead, open the door, dare ya, you know.
I'm thinking of the Monty Python, the Holy Grail. Just, ha ha! I mean that's what I was thinking. But I mean the boarding actions was never it wasn't broken. There wasn't a
No,
problem
no,
with it.
no, not at all.
So I think I'm glad to see that they've made minor tweaks, but they haven't done anything crazy. They've leaned into the leaders. You can still have leaders. That's a new thing in 10th where
Mm-hmm.
you've got a leader unit leading a group of other models and giving them buffs and bonuses and things, and they're attached to that unit. You can't do that in boarding actions, but that doesn't mean you lose the benefits and the buffs. So if I were to bring Abaddon, or if you bring
Mm-hmm.
Gilliman into there, into this boarding actions group, even though they're not leading a unit of Terminators, for example, you can now use a stratagem to give them the buffs and the bonuses that normally you would have with a leader in the larger 40k game. And now this stratagem is called battlefield command, so you give them those same buffs. You still get to use the goodies that you have with your leader, you just can't attach them to a unit. And I'm assuming that's just to help with the game balance, but also to make it feel a little tighter with the corridor system.
Yeah, and you can use epic characters as well now and Primarchs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Epic heroes. Yep.
that's kind of interesting. I don't remember if you could do that
Well,
previously?
they
I
didn't.
guess you could, but there
Yeah,
weren't
they
as
didn't.
many.
Yeah, they didn't have the epic heroes. They didn't
Hmm.
call them that in the
Yeah,
previous
yeah,
edition.
that's true.
And then just to top things off, there's if you're a White Dwarf subscriber, there's all kinds of awesome content. And for better or for worse, some people don't like that they're leading so heavily into the boarding actions. I've seen a lot of comments like,
Oh,
"Really, more
really?
boarding actions?"
Oh,
So I think it's great. They're given tiles and missions, and another little pro tip: if you're thinking about a narrative campaign for your 10th edition game with some friends, the boarding actions, the flashpoint articles, don't
hmm,
skip over those. I know they're very wordy. Don't skip over that stuff because that can give you some real cool narrative hooks for you to do a boarding actions game and then roll it right into a full 40k landfall type experience. So
yeah.
don't pass over that stuff. It's really cool.
Well, and you can't play boarding actions without some sort of mission outline.
Yeah.
And those mission outlines in the book tells you where to place the I guess you could make it up yourself, but it really gives you a nice balanced playing field. So it's nice. I think the white dwarf is nice because I'd rather spend what $8-9 or whatever white dwarf costs than
Yeah.
$40 on an Arc of Omen book to get those missions, and it gives you a what each magazine
Gives
gives
you
you.
like five. Yeah. Like
Yeah,
five or
so
six
that
missions.
hey, you could go and with the free rules, get a white dwarf and go to town, and it would be just a great. I mean, you only need those five. You don't need a
Yeah.
lot of missions to
I
play
agree.
it. So
I agree. Yeah, no, I'm really impressed with the content that they keep delivering in White Dwarf. But just play boarding actions.
yeah.
It's a great mode. Highly recommended. Good for new players. Good for veterans that want a little bit of a departure and also something to play when maybe you don't have 3 hours to or 4 hours to play a game and you want to do something quickly. Boarding actions is a great way to do that. Just make sure you have a little prep time to get all the terrain out and put it
Mm,
together. That'd be the only thing there. So I did want to touch on after boarding actions, combat patrol is the alternative to this. So boarding actions would be the internal inside of an Arcs of Omen and a spaceship, for lack of a better term. Um, you're going to have these large carrier dark corridors, maybe abandoned, and you can do all these internal battles. Combat patrol, a different way to play, is more about that traditional Warhammer landfall, planet strike type of experience, just with a limited force.
mm-hmm,
And it is designed to, they have these combat patrol boxes. You buy the box, you paint the models. We've talked about this on previous podcasts where you buy those, and then this whole combat patrol game mode is built around the notion that these data sheets are, number one, simplified, so they've the removed the rules, some of the extra complexity on it. Great for new players, and it is a prescriptive
mm-hmm,
menu of, okay, you want to play Aldari, you want to play Grey Knights, you want whatever you want to play, Chaos Demons. Here you go. Here are the units that come in the box. These are the abilities you get. Pick one or two enhancements. Right? They don't give you all of them. They just here pick
right.
this one or this one, and then you're ready to go. And I highly recommend this to new players. But Steve, I plan on really trying this out, especially as an alternative to boarding actions.
Oh my gosh, yes. The thing is, we both have enough armies. We probably already have combat patrols that we could put together now. You
Oh, for
know,
sure.
now I noticed there's a couple of there's like in the Dark Angels box. There's one thing that I don't have, and in the Necron box, there's one thing I don't have. So I
Yeah.
I can either get those models or I could proxy something. It's not a big deal. But man, I'm telling you, even as an experienced player, if you ever wanted to dabble in some other faction, and but deep down you're not going to start that army, but you're like, I kind of wanted to mess with that. Depending on the price of these boxes, man, what a good way to do it. And you don't have to think about it. You just it's there. You just go with it.
Yeah, and
Um,
it removes the prep and the thinking, and anything that removes prep and thinking from my life gives as a bonus. And it's just something that I don't have to think about. And because a lot of times when I'm getting ready to play a full game of 40k, and somebody, hey, I'm getting ready to come over, and maybe
mhm.
the day has gotten away from me, and I've got work going on, I got family stuff, whatever, and you're getting ready to come over in 15 minutes, or you just show up, and I'm like, oh man, I didn't even have my list built.
I know.
Um, that's happened to me quite often, but and I usually quickly just try to throw something together. But this, if we're just gonna play, man, I don't have to worry about it. It's just okay. I'm gonna go look at what I get, and and I like how I'm looking at the Orks Combat Patrol right now. I like how they themed these with giving you the name of
Oh, I
the
know.
leader, and it's not going to be a Gazgul Thraka, it's not going to be the epic hero
Mm-mm.
per se on these combat patrols. It's going to be, for me, it's a Warboss Gordrang, right? And they just named him something, and okay,
It's
now I
it's a
have,
lieutenant.
yeah, yeah, exactly. You have something named that you can lean into from a narrative perspective, and it tells you you get one model with this, you get 10 models with that, you get 3 models with this,
Mhm.
and you're ready to go. Here's all the data sheets. They've removed some of the rules on them, which is not a bad thing. It just makes it so much simpler to play. And I, not only for new players, this is to me, the de facto way to start playing Warhammer is to buy yourself a combat patrol box, get these free rules, pick your army, and then you have something. Put them together. You don't have to paint them, but they're going to look cooler if you paint them. Get them all together, find a friend, and now you're ready to go, which is perfect for new players, but also for veterans. If you're considering another army and
Mhm.
you don't want to have to go through all of the research and finding synergies and and what style of play and all that kind of stuff, you just go buy a combat patrol box and download the rules, and you're ready.
Yeah, just get after it. And the other, it's just going to be. This is the only way. I don't feel like in ninth edition a 500-point game was viable. I just don't think that you could build a 500-point army, play with those rules, and pick up all the synergy and all the
Yeah,
nuances and
no
everything else.
way.
But the way that they have done this and just tweak the data sheets just a little bit to make it more balanced, to where you can actually do a 500-point small game. Man, this would be great, super fun for, let's just say, Blackthorn, for instance. Our local game shop. This would be a great way to play. You would say, all right, we're having a combat patrol day.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to do big 2,000-point games or anything like that. Everyone's going to play 500-point combat patrol. We're going to limit the game to an hour, and then you're going to rotate tables. And you might get 3 or 4 games in, because in a 500-point game, it's going to go quick, especially with the way they got these rules done. And I think that would be a fun setup at a little public friendly, not a tournament, but just a friendly gathering of people. Like, hey, free day, big game center, we got the room, let's get everybody getting to know each other and go after it.
Yeah, I like this as a package deal, especially coming up with the holidays. I can't even believe I'm saying that, but in the next, you know, 3 4 months, man, it's going to be here, and
Before we know it.
grandma's going to be looking for little Johnny
Yeah.
a gift, and a lot of people just go into a Warhammer store and buy random things that look cool, and I've seen that, and that's not
Mm-hmm.
there's no problem with that, but if you wanna have the easy mode, get them a combat patrol box. Done. All
Done.
right. Everybody's got some D6s in their house from Monopoly or Yahtzee or something. I mean, really, you just need this box and, of course, a few tools, and we've
Mm-hmm.
discussed that previously. But you're ready to go with this. So I think this is a great move by Games Workshop. I love Combat Patrol. I especially like that they have carved it out into its own thing, and I hope they really market this towards new players. I think it's going to be a big success for them.
Me too.
Well, let's round out the show here with our Leviathan launch party expectations, all kinds of stuff. Leviathan is coming in 2 days. So Saturday the 24th is the big day. Even for those that didn't secure a pre-order online or anything like that, I have seen so many pictures
Mm.
around the internet with local stores just having. I saw one store that got so many boxes they made an actual throne.
Oh,
Like
that's awesome.
they stacked them into a throne. So it's out there. I think
Yeah.
Games Workshop's done a really good job of getting stock out to the local stores. So even if you didn't pre-order, you should be able to walk in and pick up a box. So um, shout out to our local game store, Blackthorn Game Center in Dixon, Tennessee, and they're an outstanding store, number one, but you do get a healthy discount on all their Warhammer products. So highly recommend you walk by there to get your Leviathan box. Um,
Just wonderful
but
people.
yeah, and it's great people, and that's the other
Yeah.
thing. We talked about going into a game store on our One for the Road podcast, and the daunting feeling, especially when you walk in and you don't feel welcome. Like, who are you, and why did you come into my store? But the folks at Blackthorn definitely not like that, and so we love going in there. We got our Leviathan boxes pre-ordered, so excited to go in there on Saturday to pick it up. I wanted to wrap up our segment just talking about some suggestions maybe for anyone thinking about if you've got a group of friends that are also picking up the box. We're gonna have a little get together at my house where we're gonna get our Leviathan box sets. We're not gonna have time to put it all together,
No.
obviously, but it's gonna be more of a Leviathan slash 10th edition kickoff party, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, but a couple of suggestions just from me about if you're thinking about wanting to do this, even if you don't have a ton of people that play Warhammer, you could go by your local game store, hang out there. People are going to be there wanting to
Hmm.
play games and pick them up. So, maybe even if you're going to go to a game store and you're going to pick up the launch box, bring some models with you. Maybe you play a combat patrol game while you're there.
That's right.
Um, but my recommendation, even though I've only played one game with any new edition of Warhammer, if you're a new player, if you're a veteran player, doesn't matter, or if you're just an old person like we are trying to remember the changes and everything, I highly recommend starting your first game with a 1,000 point game. Don't go for the full 2,000
Oh,
points
definitely not.
because all the data sheets are changed. Even though if you've read them and you've done all the math and everything changes once you get them on the table and it's your turn. It's your turn to move, and now you're in analysis paralysis. So
Hmm.
I highly recommend starting with just a 1,000 point game just to get the feel for it. Steve, from your experience going from one edition to the next, what are some tips maybe that you have for new players or veterans trying to get into the game and experience Warhammer for the very first time on the tabletop?
I think 1,000 points is key. I wish sometimes I wish I would never would have messed with 500 point games. Um, I mean, they were learning experiences, but I felt I walked away more confused. I think than when we played some of our first 1,000 point games.
Mm-hmm.
Things really clicked then. I think just be patient with your opponent. Hopefully, you're playing with a friend, so it doesn't matter, and you're kicking back and having a drink and eating pretzels or whatever. So it's not an issue anyway. So take your time, go through it, and like we've done in the past, like all right, we're gonna get through turn 3, and then we're gonna call it for a little while because it's just taking a little while. But we're getting a grip on the rules.
Yeah.
But you don't have to go a full 5 rounds if you don't just really want to. Especially if you're just kind of casually getting to know the rules and just playing around, because all you want to do is push models around on the board and roll some dice.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's important too, but even though Warhammer is sometimes overwhelmed with feedback and the commentary from the competitive scene,
Mm-hmm.
it is still just a game. It's a game, for entertainment, for fun, and the whole thing that that we're doing on Saturday, getting together, and with, I think it's going to be up to 7 of us now, and I've
Oh,
got
cool.
I've got a ping pong table that I've got battle mats, and we're gonna put terrain out, and we're getting food and all of that, and I might have to break out the folding table, to put an additional game on, but we're gonna try to have 2 or 3 games, and I'm fortunate enough to have the space to do that. But I
We're
think it
fortunate
is.
enough for you to have the space to do that.
Well, and we have a great time, even if
Yeah.
you don't have a house where you have the space to do it. Go to the local store to do it. But I think it's important to remember. I'm glad you said it. Important to remember that it's you're there to have fun. Remember that the experience of playing your first game is really just to learn. So it's almost like going to Vegas. If you set
Mm-hmm.
your expectations, I'm here to have a good time and not to win.
That's right.
I'm here to, okay, this is the money, like you're going to Vegas. This is the money I'm going to spend, and I'm doing it to be entertained, and that's it. And if I lose it all, that I didn't lose anything. I paid to enjoy myself.
That's
Same
right.
thing for playing Warhammer. Go in there with the goal of having a good time. And if you don't complete a full game and you have to reference all the rules and all that stuff, every single time you reference a rule, you're learning something. So the next time you play, you're going to be equipped. You're going to be ready to go.
That's right.
Very important to remember. And with that, when you go to play your first game, if it's this weekend or coming up, definitely check out the quick reference guide that they have on the Warcom site. It's only 3 pages, so if you're going to
Mm-hmm.
print out your data sheets for your units, you have the rules on the app, especially now, since it's free and you don't have a Warhammer Plus subscription. You can use the rules for free to reference. That it's searchable. So if you don't know what the heck lethal hits are, or devastating wounds, or you're confused about the terrain, it is searchable. It's one thing we didn't really mention on the app. It is,
True.
they've done a really good job of allowing you to search for terms. So have that handy, but that quick reference guide on paper is just going to make your games go faster and help you enjoy the game a little more.
Yeah. I thought about coming up with a quippy little name for our launch party. And I said, Daddy Con. No,
Okay. No,
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 that's not going to happen. So, social media, nice
no,
try.
no, 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 no. We'll just stick with Dad Hammer, right? Well, I'm sure
We'll
we'll
just
come
say
up with some.
Leviathan Launch Party. How about that?
Yeah, much safer, much safer. Yeah, that won't be flagged by any search filters or anything. That's
No.
good.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to it.
it's going to be a blast.
We're gonna have a good time, and if you're gonna do the same, if you're gonna get together, if you're gonna have multiple players, I do recommend again sticking with the 1,000 point game and just rotating. So hopefully those will go a little faster. I know they
Yeah.
always state that you can play a 1,000 point game in an hour and a half or 2 hours or something. Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean,
Maybe in a time bubble. I haven't been
yeah,
able to do
maybe if you memorize the rules
Yeah.
and no one has questions, maybe you can play it that quickly, or no one goes to the bathroom or eats anything.
That's right.
Well, that sounds like a great party, huh?
Yeah, it sounds like fun.
Yeah, but I mean, play a 1,000 point game and then rotate, play a different
Mhm.
game if you can squeeze it in. Hopefully, we'll be able to play a couple of games each on Saturday. That all depends on how easily we can get everything on the table and remembering all that. So
Yeah, and it'd be nice to have like a sounding board for each other.
yeah,
We all have different experiences and takes on it. It'd be nice to bounce it off several people.
yeah, and I didn't have that when I was playing with my son. The
Hmm.
Warhammer game, the first one. I would ask questions, and he's just like, "Well, I don't know." So,
You're the
okay,
expert.
yeah, right. You're the one that has the podcast. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate the vote of confidence.
Yeah,
So,
man.
yeah, I mean, I'm really excited. Hopefully, that if you've got your pre-order box, or even if you don't, definitely head out to your local game store, or get together with some friends to play a game of 10th edition. Rules are free. You got no excuse. Make it happen.
Absolutely.
Well, that will wrap our show for Dad Hammer, Bolters, and Booze. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Medicae Steve.
Yes,
I hope
sir.
that you are on the mend, sir, and then you can enjoy the cocktail next time.
I'm already better.
Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah. Some Dad Hammer just makes things better. I like that.
It's just what the doctor ordered.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you to this delicious cocktail that I just finished. Thank you, Medicae Steve, for your time and attention and your service. Hope everyone enjoys Leviathan Launch. Good luck on your first game. I am David the Warboss, and we will see you next time on Dad Hammer. Cheers, Steve.
Cheers, man.